Before retiring, William Wood was a professor of economics and the director of the Center for Economic Education at James Madison University. Now he has pivoted to a new personal mission statement, improving quality of housing and quality of life for autistic adults. William, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Hey, thanks, Joe. It's good to be with you.
So to start, you made the move from academic economics to becoming a small scale housing developer. What's the biggest difference in your new role?
Biggest difference in economics, we will do something like drawing a marginal cost curve. That's just where we start. And then we analyze some problem about what the firm ought to do. Biggest difference now is that assumes away so much. Before you ever get to a cost curve, you have to decide what you're going to do. You have to get materials and people lined up. You have to get licensed by your local jurisdiction. So all of that stuff that goes into starting an enterprise is just assumed away when the economist draws that marginal cost curve.
Yeah. Well, you've said that one of your favorite slogans is legalize housing. Since housing is legal, that's obviously an exaggeration, but what's the point of the exaggeration?
The point of that exaggeration, and since retiring as an economist, I found out it's hard to do stuff in the real world. But one of the things that's hard to do is housing. Even in a very housing friendly jurisdiction like the one where I live right now, Bridgewater, Virginia, it takes a lot of time to get a project going. And so it is so hard to build in some places that they use this slogan, legalize housing, as if housing were illegal. But my point is that even in a housing friendly jurisdiction like Bridgewater here, it takes time and effort to get something going. We have a two-bedroom cabin that we were building as part of our little initiative here. And in order to do this, it took a public hearing, a special use permit, probably over $1,000 in compliance costs to do that. And there are jurisdictions, and I think this is an important reform, where their goal is in by 9, out by 12. That if you show up at City Hall at 9 in the morning wanting to build a two-bedroom cottage on your property as a so-called accessory dwelling unit, then they'll get you out of there by 12 with your building permit and you can go break ground.
Hmm. So I know you're a fan of quote naturally occurring affordable housing or NOAA. What is that and how does it differ from affordable housing as commonly understood?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just in the American South, think a trailer park. That is naturally occurring affordable housing. It's naturally occurring because nobody got subsidized and nobody built a great big plan in order for that trailer park to occur. And while trailer parks have in some quarters a bad reputation, stop and think a minute about what's good about them. They have relatively high density, they're relatively affordable, they have relatively small square footage. And you can think about building a modern equivalent of a trailer park that would be something like a tiny home community that could provide great housing for people who didn't have a whole lot of money to spend. In contrast, when people use that term affordable housing, so often what they mean is some great big project. It might even be a high rise for which you have to get grant funding, you have to get a bunch of regulatory approvals. Sometimes affordable housing is a condition of building a bigger development somewhere else. You have to build a little affordable housing as part of it. I think naturally occurring affordable housing really is the solution, the way forward to getting more housing available out there.
You're especially interested in developing housing for people with developmental disabilities like autism. Does this population have fundamentally different housing needs from everybody else?
Well, that's a funny thing that I discovered. My wife and I have a 41-year-old son who's autistic, and we're looking to his future housing. That's one of the things that caused me to pivot this way after I retired. And as we developed various plans and met with people and looked at things, one unexpected reaction was that when people looked at our plans for an apartment for somebody with autism, they said, "Hey, I'd kind of like to live in a place like that," because it would be an apartment with privacy, yet connected to a space where there was other stuff going on. so that you could be out in the common space doing things, or when you wanted, you could retreat to your room and have some privacy and have a bathroom there, maybe a rudimentary kitchen setup. So what we found was that what we think a lot of autistic people would benefit from is housing that's appealing to a lot of other people too. And the thing is, it's very difficult to build that kind of housing right now because our whole system is geared toward getting a lot and putting a single family house on it and doing that 1,000 times over.
So is the key to affordable housing increasing density? Is it really that simple?
It's pretty close to that. Um, the the big mistake that we made as a society, almost without knowing we were making it, was we tried to make everything car accessible. And one question I like to ask people is, um, where's your favorite place to hang out when you're not at home? And I could ask you that right now, Joe. Where's your favorite place to hang out when you're not at home?
I like going to the movies like Alamo and seeing the latest movie.
Yeah, yeah. And so one of the attractions of that is that if you're going to the movie, then you're leaving your house, you're going somewhere. It's great when that's walkable, but for most of us, that's getting in the car and taking a trip. Um, so anyway, it's one of those things where density allows us to do a lot of things really close together. Right now, I live half a mile from a theater, right here in Bridgewater, Virginia. Right across the street from the theater is my favorite place to hang out, which is Francesco's Restaurant. And one thing about most of our favorite places to hang out is if they're walkable, they're not very car friendly. Funny thing about that, when we design for cars, we create places that often aren't very interesting to go.
Yeah. Well, how can people in most places see what proposed zoning reforms would look like?
Here's what you need to do. You need to find the place where your community originated. And in many cases, that'll be kind of old, especially relative to the rest of it. And go down there and walk around. Here in Bridgewater, Virginia, for example, we go down to the intersection of Main and College Street. It was the original intersection. And you start walking around there and you notice that the houses are really close together. And you realize, hey, this is what the rest of Bridgewater might look like if we had more permissive setbacks and other things like that. Sometimes we do great things by accident, and College Street, Bridgewater is a great example. There's probably a street in your community that is like that as well. That College Street being an original street, the houses were built very close to it. And the street got enlarged. And so now, all up and down College Street, the front yards are tiny. And people realized, hey, that's the way we want our yards. If we're going to have a yard, far better that the front yard be tiny, not very much to mow, and the backyard give us all that recreation space. And yet, in many places, we have come up with regulations that have such stringent setbacks from the road that we're all building a long way from the road and building great big front yards that all we can do is mow the grass on.
So I understand you took a position on your local planning commission. What do people not know about planning and zoning that they should know?
What they don't know is the extent to which we have tricked ourselves into being unable to replicate some of our favorite places. Just one town up, Dayton, Virginia, the former mayor was an economist also. He was a colleague of mine at James Madison University. And he observed to me one day, I later learned this was not very original. He was looking around downtown Dayton, Virginia, and saying, you know, if this place burned down, we would not be able to build this. And it's because the setbacks, the requirements for cars and parking and all that wouldn't allow one of the most beautiful little downtowns you'll see, Dayton, Virginia, to be rebuilt the way it was. I looked around Bridgewater and realized the same thing. You look around other great spaces, say like Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or the French Quarter in New Orleans, and you realize none of those things would be zoning compliant. And so Our zoning laws, I think, need reform so that we can build more great places. And so often we are preventing ourselves from doing that.
Yeah. Well, William, thank you so much for taking the time and really appreciate you sharing insights and wisdom with our audience and hope we can continue the conversation down the road.
Great. Thanks for having me.